My dear friends, it's been a while, and so I thought I'd send this update. Nothing important, there's no astrology, well, a little bit, but there's nothing for you to really think about. It's just a fireside chat, although my fireplace has not been lit yet this season. I have been going through some books from the library, so I thought I'd read you some and show you some really fascinating things. I don't have a lot of time to read lately, so flipping through books has been really fun for me when I can. Do I want to start there? So I've got 3 things to tell you about. One is my Mayan birthday. It comes around every 260 days, so sometimes you get 2 or 3 you get like 3 birthdays a year sometimes, including your solar return, which is like the normal birthday that we celebrate. Mine's on Earth Day. This is November 23rd, so it is the resonant moon portal from the Dreamspell calendar. That's my Mayan birthday. I'm drinking some coffee. I'm going to tell you about the experience I had for my birthday. I'm going to tell you about 3 of these books and read some chapters from one. Yes, it's like 8 o'clock at night. I'm drinking coffee. I don't have coffee very often, maybe like once or twice a month, just for fun. Here's a little health tip. Around 7 or 8 o'clock, or sometimes 6 o'clock for some people, our bodies can get really sleepy. And we might think, oh, I'm very sleepy, or I can't make it through the night, or I need like some coffee or some stimulant to pick me up. It's usually not true at all. The truth is that most of the time we're dehydrated. So around 7 o'clock, it's a really good practice, maybe even 6:30, to just chug a bunch of water. That's a great time to put a bunch of extra fluids in your body, and you can get this quick pick-me-up right away. In fact, while I would put the coffee on, I grabbed a bunch of water while I waited. I just figured the coffee would taste good. Adam wanted to celebrate Thanksgiving, and we really don't, unless we have Friendsgiving planned. So I figured since Adam got to feast for a little bit, I'd make a little cup of coffee. So on that subject, the 3rd thing I wanted to tell you about, I'm going to tell you about first, and that is these crackers I just got back from the Dollar Tree, where these crackers are $1.25, and they should not be. These are high-end, amazing things. So I love crackers. It's a little known fact. Most people don't know about me that I really like crackers. And I don't have a favorite. I used to have a favorite here and there, but nothing has really like blown my mind. Not in a long time anyway. These are gourmet. So they come in a package like this. I haven't had this kind yet. This one is like their vegetable herb. They're called Greta. They basically kind of look like this. They feature this olive oil for a reason. So the kind I just got was their like olive oil flavor. And wow, you can taste the olive. There's not that much salt, and I love salt. But there's really not that much salt. It's just this beautiful hint of salt, like just enough that you feel totally satisfied with that amount of salt. So inside of this package are a bunch of like single serving packages with like 10 crackers in each one that are nice, and they're pretty elegant, really. So you open it up, and there's 2 crackers on here. They're just kind of still linked together. They've got this herb on them. This one's not even the herb one. This is the olive oil one. It's so good. It's so rich, so delicious. The crisp is perfect. I just needed to tell you that because it is my Mayan birthday. You often on your Mayan birthday will experience all kinds of gifts coming in. Plus, I was born on one of these portal days, and on the portal days, we all at the same time experience this beautiful kind of shift. We'll just put it at that. And if you're out in the world and out to do something good in the world and outside, there's something really magical that happens. It brings these gifts to your life. And wow, today really wowed me. So it's also a new moon. And my personal birthday, so on your Mayan birthday, it's one of the 260 archetypes that you're born under, and that archetype comes back around as your Mayan birthday. But everybody on the whole planet is experiencing the day together at the same time. So I was born on a resonant moon portal day, which means that everybody on the planet is experiencing a resonant moon portal day. They're all experiencing the portal day. They're all experiencing the resonant moon. But for me, and whoever else was born on a resonant moon portal day, it's like amped up to the highest vibration. You are feeling yourself and you are feeling really good, and everybody gets a little taste of who you are on that day. And the gifts are even stronger. So on the new moon, I like to write, I like to sit and contemplate with the new moon and write down my purpose. And today my friend happened to write me and tell me precisely what time the new moon was going to be. Which was great because it amplified what I was already going to do for my birthday. So on the moon days, it's very much about water and purity and flow. On the resonant days, it's very much about alignment and attunement with the divine, and allowing not only yourself to be attuned with the divine, but allowing that to inspire others to find their own attuned flow and flow with it, baby. So I was going to go visit a bunch of waters today. That was my basic theme, that I was taking my kid out. We were going to go to rivers and creeks and lake, and we also did some forest walks. So we got out the door about 1:11, and I think the new moon was supposed to be at 2:43. Yes, I remember exactly 2:43 this time, Central Standard Time. So to make the long story way short for this video, we did go to a lake, and my kid was excited the whole time, which for me was an absolute gift in itself. We went to the lake, and that was beautiful and serene, and it was warm enough all day that our windows were open, which it hasn't been in a while. And we were really going to do the cold water plunge. We were just going to do it, get in. We brought our towels. I wanted to get in. I didn't know where I was going to get in, but sitting at the lake, all of a sudden, which was our first stop, the wind, the clouds like poured in, like these big thunder clouds, and the wind whooshed straight across the lake, and it was getting a little bit cold. And we might have even gone in at that time, but I thought we still might go in. So we were going to go to the river for the new moon, because that's where I wanted to do my new moon stuff. And I wanted to be there at the precise time my friend had told me. So I went, and we happened to, like, we were sauntering, we were picking up trash, we were talking, we were giggling, we had some gift to drop off in the forest beforehand. Adam had a special path that he wanted to go down beforehand. So anyway, we made it to the river and just adored how beautiful it was. And as soon as I like got onto a rock, so it was actually in the river, but it was on a rock, so I wasn't really wet in the river, at precisely 2:43, and I felt really accomplished because it just happened to happen that way. Except I kind of rushed us out of the lake a little bit, but still we sauntered. So I get to the lake, and I'm writing my wishes, and I'm trying to make them really simple this time. I was kind of playing with them and toying with them because I was noticing some patterns about what I receive and what I don't receive. As I'm writing, I'm thinking, man, I really would like more friends in the area, and I'd really like a friend, like a really quality friend that encompasses these things that I'm looking for. But I didn't write that down. And so oh my gosh, it was so cute. We saw all these fishes come and just look at us. I drew some fishes as I was sitting there. Adam was having a blast. And eventually we just knew it was time to like get moving down the trail and go. Adam wanted to explore the other side of the lake that we were at. Which had a creek, which was really beautiful, and I let some offerings out at the creek. And we did this beautiful trail. But on our way out of the river, I met a friend, a really good friend, and a new friend, somebody I'd never met before. And this friend encompassed so many qualities that I was looking for in a friend. And also he introduced me to the otters at the river. This river I love. This is a very special river. We've had some incredible special experiences here. And he introduced me to the beavers at the river. So I've got otter friends, beaver friends, this new friend, and his friends and I think are going to be good friends too. Otters, beavers, dog friend, person friend, yes, all good, great stuff. And then we went over to the lake and we took a walk, and Adam found his very favorite mushroom friends, the earth star mushrooms. The earth star mushrooms are, if you know mushrooms, you know earth star mushrooms, which is in one of these books I'm going to talk about too. So Adam was really excited and told me on the way out, oh my gosh, I wish I had 10,000 earth star mushrooms, which really wouldn't take up much space. And we were, not only did we get the rivers and the creeks and the lakes and the friends and the perfect timing and the happiness, but on our way out, we're driving down this dirt road filled with potholes, cars can barely pass through, and this truck pulls over to let me through. And I'm noticing to myself, two good drivers could pass through this without pulling over. And then I notice, that's my new friend. So I pull over, I tell him to come on through, and I pulled over a little bit, and so then I stopped him and I'm like, hi! And it was really good, perfect timing, because I realized that this man, he's a 75-year-old man. And I realized that it wasn't just me who felt like we're going to be really good friends, but it was in his mind too. He's very friendly. He meets a lot of people. So I thought maybe he just thinks, I'm one of those other people he meets on the trail. But no, this is a really beautiful encounter on the way out. That let me know that I'm welcome in his family's life. And I think I'll leave it there. So that's the shortened version of a really beautiful day filled with gifts. And when it's your Mayan birthday, that means it's the day out of the 260 archetypes that keep repeating themselves that you were born under. It's the same archetype. And that's what kind of day you can have if you just dive into it. Who am I? What am I about? What am I here to do with the planet? If it's a portal day, and just to be that. And if it's a portal day, absolutely do those things outside. In fact, we're in the night wave spell right now, so Adam's outside playing at night. Adam really wanted to go back to the lake at night. Part of my point was that not only did we get all those things with the waters, because it's the moon day and the moon has to do with the water and the night a little bit, but it started raining. It started this beautiful, perfect rain on our hike. That's why we came out in the perfect timing to meet my new friend. I wish we wouldn't have met him had we kept hiking up to our destination. But it was kind of cold rain, but it felt really good because it didn't hit us really hard. It was just this gentle sprinkle that just kind of danced along the scalp instead of pounding us and making us really wet. But I knew that it was probably build, so we were going to leave. Plus it was getting dark on a new trail. So that's a little fireside update, and we got crackers, we got the coffee. Now I'm going to tell you about these very special books we found at the library. So the library is Adam's favorite place, which is fun because I spent about a decade of my life volunteering in libraries. I volunteered for libraries just I don't even know. I was very young, so I don't know how often, maybe once a week or something. Not a big deal. From the time I was like 11 and could. And that was before my mom became a librarian. So she became a librarian and then started driving me to a different school out of my district. So after school every day I'd come to her school and help her out in the library. And she was a librarian, children's librarian for 13 years. And now it's fun because Adam really loves the library. That's his like sacred place. That's his church. So we were there and we both saw this book we were really excited about. I grabbed this one that I thought you guys would absolutely love, the Fungipedia. And it was a display that the librarians had put out. So this book, you might not be able to tell, but it's actually super textured here. It's some kind of lovely, like, almost a cotton, almost a weave, but it's like somewhere between cotton and velvet. And then the mushroom itself is not, but you could feel the bumps on top of this amanita. You could feel the white bumps. This has a slight texture to it. The mycelium is the same texture as this white, but it's not as deep. This has a depth to it. You can actually feel where these gills separate. It's really beautifully done. So you could actually read this if you were blind even and feel that, which is pretty cool. And they're tiny books. Like, it's just a tiny book. Not too tiny though. It's very easy to read. So we found this one, and at the same time, Adam walks out of the library with a stack of like 30 books at a time. Oh, where's the other one? Well, at the same time, I found this one, which is what I'm going to be reading to you from. They are from the same author. I think they're written the same. Why did they say they're from different authors? Treepedia Fungipedia, same idea, a brief compendium of, they both say, this one says mushroom lore and this one says arboreal lore, but they're by different people, Lawrence Millman and Joan Maloof, which is interesting. Because what I'm going to do is read you Joan's foreword and then read you from here. Because Joan's foreword is really good. I didn't read the foreword in Treepedia. It really explains what these books are about. And I think, my botany friends, you are going to love these and want them in your library. So when I read these books, when I bring you books from the library, they're really special books. So I think it's funny that the other book, although it was pretty, and I thought that you would like it because it's pretty and kind of kitschy, it didn't show up. I think that's because it's not one of those that must be worth buying. I flipped through it a little bit. It is really cute. It's anyway, let's not cover that today. But Adam, so I chose this one. We both were like, yes, let's read this. And then I was like, ooh, this. And he grabbed the other one because he went the other way, like poisonous plants, some kind of poisonous plant book. It talks mostly about how to care for Venus flytraps and the carnivorous plants. It's a carnivorous plant book and a host parasitic plant book. So that's just kind of how we do. We sometimes meet in the middle, and this Fungipedia is where we meet in the middle. So now it's story time from the books and not just from Star. Okay, so this is Fungipedia. I'm going to read to you the beginning, probably also by Lawrence Millman. Okay, so the foreword is just the very first page here. It's got this cute spore print picture. That's not even real spore prints, they're just paintings of them. Fungipedia presents a delightful A to Z treasury of mushroom lore, with more than 180 entries on topics as varied as Alice in Wonderland, chestnut blight, medicinal mushrooms, poisonings, Santa Claus, and waxy caps. This collection will transport both general readers and specialists into the remarkable universe of fungi. Combining ecological and ethnographic, historical, and contemporary knowledge, author and mycologist Lawrence Millman discusses how mushrooms are much more closely related to humans than to plants, how they engage insects, how insects farm them, and how certain species happily dine on leftover radiation, cockroach antennae, and dung. He explores the lives of individuals like African American scientist George Washington Carver, who specialized in crop diseases caused by fungi, Beatrix Potter, creator of Peter Rabbit, who was prevented from becoming a professional mycologist because she was a woman, and Gordon Watson. So anyway, that's kind of how these books go. And I don't know if there's anything but the Fungipedia or the Treepedia. I'm sure it says in here, but start here, my friends, with your search. These are very, very good. Treepedia is the same. So today I picked it up, and a couple of days ago I picked it up and read a few entries, and it's really heartwarming. So even if this is information I'll never use, it doesn't matter. I thought at first that this was going to be like, here's a cherry tree, this is how to identify a cherry tree. Here's an oak tree, this is how to identify an oak tree. That is not what it is, but it is what it is at the same time. So, where to begin? So I'm kind of in the C's. I don't know why I keep opening up in the C's. So let me just tell you about the entries that I've read and read you a couple. So today I picked it up and read the cacao tree, which I didn't even know why I was reading it. I'm not really interested in chocolate. In fact, I've only been able to eat chocolate in my life for the last 3 or 4 years since I cured my allergy. Coffee too. I usually only like to read about things that are going to help other people or that I can personally use, like with permaculture. I'm not ever going to be farming cacao trees because I don't live in South America or Africa. So before I picked this up, I didn't know a whole lot about it. I did know some things because I like to study food. I thought chocolate was from Africa. How many of you thought chocolate was from Africa? Okay, well, let's read about cacao. And don't skip forward because this is not your normal entry. The tree that produces the beans used to make chocolate. Oh, that's the first sentence because it starts with cacao. It's not really a sentence. Cacao trees, Theobroma cacao, are small understory trees that grow in tropical regions. They evolved in the eastern slopes of South America, Andes. And early on, they were spread by humans in a range from southern Mexico through Central America. I mean, I guess I knew that the Mayans and Aztecs had chocolate. I knew that. Somewhere in my brain, I just didn't care to remember that, of course, they had that, so it must be indigenous to there somehow. Because we think about it in Africa so often. So anyway, they go through Central America into the Amazon basin area of South America, and there are now, on the planet, 25 million acres of cacao plantations in production all over the tropical areas of the earth, including the African continent now, where a majority of the beans are now grown. Cacao trees have large unlobed leaves. A lobe on a leaf is one way that you identify it. So a leaf with no lobes is called a simple leaf, and it just goes around in some way. A lobe has like fingers on it. They call it fingers, or it has juts out in the side, like an oak leaf has lobes, for those who want to know. So it's just a big, they call it a simple margin leaf. It's a simple leaf. It doesn't have a lobe. This one goes on to further explain what a lobe is by saying somewhat resembling avocado leaves. They produce, the cacao trees produce large, colorful fruit pods. And then there's a nice picture of the cacao pod for you. This book has cute little pictures in it. Unlike most fruits, the oblong pods grow directly from the trunk or the main branches. Inside the rind of the fruit are 40 or 50 large brown seeds, surrounded by a sweet white pulp. The pulp could be eaten fresh or used to produce a fermented drink, which I've often read about in the Aztec lore. That's the pulp. But it is the beans that have made this plant so well loved, for they are the source of the chocolate flavor. When making chocolate, the pulp is allowed to ferment on the beans to improve the flavor. After fermentation, the beans are dried to prepare them for shipment. When the beans have reached their destination, they are roasted and then cracked and deshelled. The resulting inner bean can be ground into a paste or pressed to produce a cocoa butter and a cocoa powder. The many variations of this process result in different types of chocolate. There are 10 distinct and named variations of the cocoa tree. All these variations in beans and processing results in the nuances of chocolate that are prized by connoisseurs. The Abroma cacao tree has been cultivated by humans for almost 4,000 years. There is evidence that beverages were made from the cacao as early as 1700 BCE. Chocolate from the cacao seems to have an attraction that we cannot escape. Arthur James Patterson says, if these scientists had been using their brilliance for good, no one would be hungry. No one would be ill. All buildings would be earthquake, bomb, and flood-proof, and the world's entire economy would have collapsed and been replaced by one based on the value of chocolate. Did he know that from 700 to 600 CE, in Mayan and Aztec cultures of Mesoamerica, cacao beans were already used as currency? One bean equaled one avocado or tomato. 3 beans equaled an egg. Remember, each pod has 40 or 50 beans in it. 3 beans equals an egg. And 100 beans, which is about 2 pods, equals 1 turkey. And that is the end of the cacao entry. So then you go on and you're like, okay, what's the next one? Because these are in alphabetical order. Cherry. But no, the next entry is actually carbon sequestration. I actually don't know how to pronounce that word. Carbon sequestration. I've never said that one out loud. So I'm not going to read to you about carbon sequestration. That's just how, trees breathe, basically. The next entry is called cat, and then carbon sequestration is just part, it's one page, that one. And then this is about cat face, which goes on for about a page and a half. Cat face is something I didn't know about, so I read that. What is cat face? Cat face is a scar in the trunk of a tree. I'm not going to read you all of this one. A scar on the trunk of a tree where the bark was removed and callus tissue forms to try and repair the damage. The term originated from the pattern of the cuts made in the bark to collect turpentine. The earliest turpentine collection in the United States was from pitch pines in New England. But after the Revolutionary War in 1776, turpentine production shifted to longleaf pine forests. And it goes on to tell you where those are. Pine tree bark was slashed in a V shape, and the sap that dripped from the bottom of the V into a tin pan was collected for distilling into turpentine. It goes on to explain how they made these cuts in the tree, why they became 10 feet tall cuts, and that these trees, it eventually killed most of the trees that they did this process on. I also want to tell, and it looked like whiskers on the tree, so that's why they turned it cat face for any scar on a tree. But interestingly in here, he adds most of this work was done by slaves or prisoners, and next to cotton and rice, turpentine became one of the largest exports of the South. Blah, blah, blah. And most of the trees used in this production eventually died as the result of the process and were cut for boards. In 2 generations, from 1870 to 1930, almost all of the original stands of longleaf pine in Florida, in all of the South, 130 million acres were destroyed, and the turpentine industry disappeared too. I was talking to a friend recently. We were doing some trades, healing trades, and kind of discussing things as healers, and she told me turpentine is her number one go-to fix it all, which I found fascinating because I don't know a lot about turpentine, and I didn't still know a lot about turpentine. I told her I'd look it up, but I never did, and I had no idea. It's like pine tree basically based, and I've been fascinated by what pine trees do for our health recently. So that's interesting. So it does say, though, that on occasion a tree in the South is still found with a cat face. Then the next half a page talks about how other scars on trees, any scar on a tree is called a cat face now. And that in the North and other regions, they started calling things cat face. Again, like expanding the term away from these turpentine production because of the caterpillar trucks, as they were logging pine trees, would run into the trees, cause these scars too. So the next entry is cedar. This is the one I really wanted to read you, so I'm going to, but you're going to have to wait for that. The next entry is champion, which is really neat. Champion is just the biggest tree of its kind. So the biggest cherry tree is going to be the champion cherry tree, and it's huge. It's not like the biggest cherry tree in your forest usually. It's the biggest cherry tree in the country. Our country has a register of its champions, or the biggest cherry tree in the world. So that's what a champion is. I want to tell you, I think this is the last entry I'm going to explain about. Yeah, it is. Okay, I'll explain a couple more because I did go further. The cherry tree entry touched my heart so much. Oh my gosh, it is beautifully written and makes me want to do a cherry festival. I love cherry trees. As a Buddhist, cherry trees are central, and Japanese Buddhism is really deep in my heart. That's where these festivals really originated from. They have once a year the cherry festival, which represents hope and beauty and the fact that winter will end and eventually the cherry trees will blossom again. That just touches my heart. As you could tell, I can't even get the sentence out properly. So they have a huge festival where people spend like all day. They'll come with picnics and they'll sit down with their sweeties and their families, and they'll picnic all day and there'll be like music and beauty and these beautiful cherry blossoms raining down everything all the way through the night, deep into the night anyway. And that in the 1800s, one of the fancy women here in the United States went over to Japan and happened to experience this cherry festival. And she was so moved that she talked to the first lady, and she's like, we need to have this cherry festival. And so she got up, and the president was like, no, I really don't want to spend money planting cherry trees here. So she went and raised the money for cherry trees, and as she was raising the money for cherry trees, Tokyo was like, we'll give you some cherry trees. So they sent over 2,000 cherry trees. Well, there's some speculation here. Did this really happen, or was this like, we don't want Japan here type of stuff? But the 2,000 cherry trees were destroyed. They say that they had a blight, or that they weren't, they were diseased. Maybe they were, maybe they won't. We don't know. But they were destroyed. So, no cherry trees. And the woman started to raise money again, and Tokyo said, that's okay. We're going to send you some more. They sent 3,000 cherry trees. So the White House got to work planting 3,000 healthy cherry trees, and now there's a bunch of cherry trees, and there is a cherry festival in Washington, D.C. every year, which millions of people come from too. I don't remember if they said 1 million or a millions, but isn't that beautiful? So that was the cherry entry, and after cherry is the Christmas tree entry, which really reminds us that we've only been cutting down whole trees for like 100 years. It's not an ancient tradition to bring a whole tree into the house, but it is an extremely ancient tradition to bring green boughs into the house, which when I started doing it, didn't know. As a young mom, I certainly was not going to cut down a tree and bring it into the house. If you like to do that, I'm not ragging on you at all. I believe each person is going to do what they feel is right. For me and my children, that doesn't feel right. What feels right is going out and collecting these beautiful green boughs that we do find, or even like beautiful hardwood that we find in these big branches or stabs, and bringing them inside and celebrating the joy that these trees bring us, and even decorating them is fun for us. That's an ancient tradition to bring the green boughs inside that time of year, just to remind us that there still is green in the world, just to remind us that even though we might feel like stuck in these little boxes for survival, that nature is our true soul survival, and so we can bring the nature in with us. So that was cute to just remember that throughout the Christmas tree chapter entry. Then there's an entry called CMT. CMT over here. CMT stands for culturally modified trees, and this is the cute thing there. They go on and on about culturally modified trees. So like the turpentine trees that you could see the cat face on with the whiskers, those are culturally modified trees, CMTs. People used to, and we don't see a lot of like petroglyphs inside of trees because trees eventually die off. I lived in a house once with a gorgeous forest, and in this forest were these trees that when the words had grown, you could tell they were scratched in with a knife, but they had grown so thick and so big that they were like ominous, and it was, I don't remember, something like Jesus is coming. Every year it just expands and swells. So one of these trees, they said, because I'm here, it says, "I'm not coming back here," declares a carving in the sun-bleached log near Montana Lake. "Except to fish, maybe," it says. So apparently there was a lot of these really sad, lonely messages in the trees a while back. Those we just don't see anymore because we have more transportation, we have more like civility, and we have more different type of media to write on. We can type, or we can use a pen and paper. So there's different ways to culturally modify a tree, but that was a cute chapter. The last one I'm going to talk about, just because I really enjoyed it, before I read to you about the cedar trees, try not to cry, is coppicing. Oh, I meant to look that word up before I said it, because I've never heard of it before, coppicing. And I've been studying how to collect for baskets, because that's my new level, my next level. Coppicing is C-O-P-P-I-C-I-N-G. Coppicing. Am I saying that right, guys? Let me know in the comments. So coppicing basically is the act of cutting down a tree, and there's all kinds of trees you can do this with. You can't do it with every kind of tree, but there are many kinds of trees you can do this with. You find a big one, you cut it down to a certain size, and it starts to grow out shoots. So basically this one tree stump will have shoots growing out of it that you can use with more supple material for weaving baskets or building with or whittling with. So one big tree stump will grow out 2 to 4 to 20 little trees over it. So in the space of one tree, you have 20 of the same type of trees growing that you can use. So you can cut down a whole tree off of this one stump, and there's still a few more growing. So in this way, they were able to, in the same spot, keep harvesting trees over and over again without having to wait all that time. It took a lot less time. Let's see. One benefit was the fast regrowth of wood in a very manageable size. Another benefit is that no replanting is needed and the soil is left relatively undisturbed. I wanted to tell you like how long they lasted. I forget what it was though. So I'm going to read to you this chapter on cedar, and then we will conclude our evening. I'll probably be interrupted by my child at some point. Let me check though the battery level real quick, just to make sure we're good. So, cozy up for the longer story. So firstly, Lebanon is huge on my heart, always. I don't know if I was there in a past life. Khalil Gibran, who wrote The Prophet, was like dear to my heart from the time I was young. My mom had all of his books, like the Treasury of Khalil Gibran. She had several books that were separate, like The Prophet was separate from just the whole treasury, for instance. And back at some of this like spiritual times in her life, that was like a Bible for a lot of the people that she was with. And for me, it became a Bible for ethics as I was growing up. And that mysticism that he held and gifted us with came from Lebanon. He was from Lebanon. I have much more to say about Lebanon, but let me just tell you that this is like some of my really important ethical foundation. Also, as a nerd about trees, there are no cedar trees in the United States, North America. We don't have cedars. We call all these trees cedars, and they're not really cedars. So as a nerd, I like to let people know that. We do have some because they've been planted here, but not many, and they're not the cedars you think of. So this chapter will cover that a little bit at first, and then it's going to go into the devastating history of what happened to the cedars in Lebanon. So, just one moment, because there's something I need to do real quick. And one of the things I really love about this story is that it teaches me about a new hero that I did not know about before. I do want glasses. Okay, my good glasses are gone, so these might... while I'm reading. All right, okay. So let's get to Lebanon. A cedar. Cedar is a word in the common names. Cedar. A word in the common name of many trees. Some trees containing this name are closely related, and others are not. For instance, eastern red cedar, Juniperus virginia, is a cypress, not a true cedar. And in the ancient forest of Pacific Northwest of the United States, or in British Columbia, Canada, the trees that awe with their size and complexity are the western red cedars, actually in the family Thuja plicata. not true cedars. So those are the western red cedars and the eastern red cedars. One is Juniperus virginiana and the other is Thuja plicata. It would be more correct to call both of these trees cypress, since that is the plant family that they are in. It is a very large family that includes redwoods, sequoias, bald cypress, and juniper. None of the true cedars are native to North America. Examples of true cedar that you might be familiar with are the feathery deodar cedar, Cedrus deodara, or the great cedar of Lebanon, Cedrus librans, Cedrus libani, with needles in spiral clusters. Ooh, I'd love to see that. These are true cedars. The fragrant, insect-repelling properties of the true cedars have been appreciated for thousands of years. The New World trees were casually and mistakenly called cedars because they too had aromatic qualities. Think of the smell of hamsters bedding from the pet store, or the pencil shavings. The oldest known piece of Western literature is the Epic of Gilgamesh. So, you've probably heard the name Gilgamesh, but you probably don't know really who he is. At least that's my experience. You hear the word Gilgamesh, people use the name Gilgamesh in their stories. Maybe it's in the Bible and I just don't know this story because I quit reading that book. At some point I couldn't handle anymore. And I'll pick it up sometimes and see if it has something to tell me, but there are some stories in there I've never seen. It's a Western literature. No, it's not in there. There's another Bible story in here that I have heard of, but I didn't realize how closely related to the Gilgamesh that it is. They'll tell you about it. So this story was etched on stone tablets by 1700 BCE. It's a long time ago. Please still take me seriously. So this era, 1700 BCE, was an era when events documented in the Hebrew Bible were taking place. Both the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Bible discuss the logging of cedar forests. The Epic of Gilgamesh is set in the cradle of civilization, the Tigris-Euphrates River Valley. In that tale, the cultured but ego-filled Gilgamesh teams with a mountain man, Enkidu, to accomplish a mutual goal, material wealth. Material wealth. The wealth was to be gained by cutting large, old cedar timbers that were to be used to build palaces and temples. But in the olden times, the forests were thought to be protected by gods, or by mortals who were empowered by the gods. According to the epic, the cedars of Lebanon were protected by Humbaba, a frightening Hulk-like being. We find out that Humbaba is actually like the Lorax, only muscular and big. The epic tells the story of their preparation for battle and their travels to the forest. It tells of their arrival at the forest and their amazement and awe at seeing these magnificent trees. They were astounded by the magnificence of these trees. And here's a quote. It says, "The shade of the evergreens was cooling and comforting. It filled them with happiness to just be so cooled and comforted in the shade of this evergreen. The undergrowth was full and tangled. The sweet smell of pine and cedar were intoxicating to them. The sound of the strange birds and creatures filled them with wonder." Humbaba tried to talk them out of cutting the forest. He said, Most of what is important and necessary on the earth is encoded in this old forest. That is why the gods love cedar incense. This forest has been here since before there were people on earth. The gods sent me here in their wisdom. They know that people are greedy and short-sighted. They'll cut down the entire forest to get rich, and the wealth of Lebanon and Syria will be depleted. Because the wealth is the forest. The wealth that encodes what is important and necessary on earth. He goes on to say, it will take only a few years after I am dead, and these trees shall all be gone. There will be no more cedars in the land of cedar. Gilgamesh and Enkidu then killed Humbaba. Never been anywhere that they were ever so happy or comfortable. Never been anywhere so cozy. Realizing that, I guess they went to go ahead and kill a god if a god was there, but realizing that this is the soul of the planet. Killed him. And began cutting the great forest. That was Gilgamesh's story. In the Bible, an angel appeared to David, the king of Israel, and instructed him to build an altar. Hey David, your king, build an altar. David, the human king, David, decided that the altar should be a large and lavish place, and he began collecting cedar logs beyond number. Sophisticated scholars could not count how many there were. But before he could complete the house for the name of the Lord, I'm using quotes because there's quotations here, David became old and ill. He appointed his son Solomon to succeed him as king of Israel, and Solomon continued to construct the temple. David wasn't old and ill when this began. This is years and years of cutting cedar and building this altar. Solomon continued to construct the temple, but Israel did not have enough cedars left. The remaining old-growth cedar forests were in the land of Hiram. King Hiram and Solomon struck a deal. I've heard the message with which you sent me, said Hiram. I will do what you desire concerning the cedar and the cypress timber. My servants will bring them down from Lebanon to the sea, and I will make them into rafts to go by sea to the place where you direct me. And I will have them broken up there, and you shall carry them away. End quote. Lebanon once had more than 200,000 acres of cedar forests, and now there are not even 5,000 acres left. See also Cyprus, because this is an encyclopedia. So this is like half of the section of seas, and what wonderful things we have learned and been through. There's just cute pictures drawn so that you just fall in love with it. It's just a book that puts these fascinating little tidbits of information into any mind, whether you are a beginner and never thought about trees before, or whether you're really into arboreums and all things trees. There's still something in here to learn and fascinate and remember in your heart for the rest of your life from this book. So Treepedia, beautifully written. I'm sure that Fungipedia is the same way. judging from just the intro on the front cover. So please pick them up at the library. Please, I think these are definitely worth taking my word on it and just buying them from Amazon or something. I'm not getting paid for this. My payment is that all of our souls are enriched, and I think that, my friends, you will love this in your library, on your shelf at home, to pick up throughout your life and just have some warm wonder come into your life in little tidbits, a page and a half, to just enrich your joy, your wisdom. As ever, wishing you an ever enlightened, joyful, sweet, kind, compassionate path. Yours truly, Starlight. I hope your day is just as bright and wonderful